The episode begins by introducing Sang-ji in her junior high school days, a lively and clever girl who often found herself in trouble. On this particular day, after upsetting her math teacher, she was asked to invite her parents to school again. Within just half a month, Sang-ji's mother was summoned for the second time, leaving Sang-ji feeling both frustrated and guilty. After school, several boys encouraged their classmates to ask Sang-ji if she wanted to go to the bookstore with them, but she wasn't in the mood. Frustrated, she decided to message her older brother, Sang-yeon, who was in college, hoping he could help her. However, Sang-yeon refused without hesitation, which only added to her irritation. Grumbling to herself as she made her way home, Sang-ji was already rehearsing how to explain the situation to her mother, but to her surprise, her mother told her that Sang-yeon had come back home. Excited, Sang-ji grabbed a slice of watermelon and rushed upstairs to see him. Instead of her brother, she was greeted by a young man she didn't recognize, a strikingly handsome figure with sharp features and a gentle demeanor. For a moment, Sang-ji was stunned, wondering if her brother had undergone plastic surgery. Her confusion didn't last long, as Sang-yeon appeared behind her, grinning playfully. Sang-yeon quickly figured out why his sister was looking so bewildered. Knowing her habits all too well, he teased her about the trouble she'd caused, commenting that she only wanted him home when she was in a fix. The young man then introduced himself as Dwan Jak-soo, Sang-yeon's college roommate. Sang-ji was immediately intrigued by Dwan Jak-soo, though she felt a mix of embarrassment and curiosity. The situation took a humorous turn when Sang-yeon discovered that Sang-ji had mistaken Dwan Jak-soo for his post-plastic surgery self. This sparked a lively sibling argument filled with teasing and laughter. Sang-ji begged Sang-yeon to help her resolve the issue at school. When her pleading and tears failed to sway him, she escalated the situation by bursting into loud sobs and complaining to their mother. Seeking an ally, she hid behind Dwan Jak-soo, still crying, and pointed accusingly at Sang-yeon. Their mother stepped in and dragged Sang-yeon away for a scolding. The moment they left the room, Sang-ji instantly stopped crying, her tears vanishing like magic. Dwan Jak-soo was taken aback. He hadn't expected the sibling dynamic to be so entertaining, filled with such dramatic antics even at a young age. However, with Sang-yeon out of the picture, Sang-ji quickly shifted her strategy. She turned her attention to Dwan Jak-soo, asking him to pretend to be her brother and accompany her to meet the teacher. As Sang-yeon went to change clothes, Sang-ji clung to Dwan Jak-soo, begging for his help. Dwan Jak-soo, though clearly amused by her persistence, explained that he still had to leave soon for his part-time job. Standing at the door, Sang-ji pleaded with him, determined to convince him to step in. When Dwan Jak-soo learned that she was already in her second year of junior high school, he was visibly surprised. Her petite frame and youthful demeanor made her seem much younger than her actual age. Still, after a moment of thought, Dwan Jak-soo asked about her school, seemingly willing to help out. Taken aback by his question, Sang-ji momentarily froze, her mind racing. She stood there feeling dazed and flustered as Dwan Jak-soo walked away, leaving her to contemplate her next move. Sang-ji is now a sophomore in high school, and today, Sang-yeon has returned home for the first time in a while. He mentions that he wants to borrow their father's car to move some things as he's moving back to the main campus, which is conveniently close to Sang-ji's school. Knowing that Sang-yeon is moving his roommate's belongings, Sang-ji quickly offers to help him. Her sincerity eventually convinces Sang-yeon, especially with their parents' gentle pressure, and he agrees to let her come along. In the afternoon, when Sang-ji goes to help, she sees her father's car parked downstairs. As she approaches, she picks up a fox doll lying nearby. Dwan Jak-soo then appears and immediately recognizes Sang-ji, though he's taken aback by how much she's grown. After a few years, she's no longer the young girl he remembers. Sang-ji, feeling embarrassed, continues to hold the fox doll close as they make eye contact. Dwan Jak-soo leads Sang-ji to their dormitory, where his roommate's eyes light up when they see her. It's clear that Sang-ji's cuteness hasn't gone unnoticed. Dwan Jak-soo invites her to sit next to him, and Sang-ji, with a bit of a grin, refutes his attempt to call her little sister, insisting that she's not so young anymore. Amused, Dwan Jak-soo helplessly obliges and calls her sister one word at a time. The conversation shifts to dinner plans, with everyone suggesting going for hot pot, but Dwan Jak-soo has to leave for work. Before he heads out, he tells Sang-ji that if she likes the fox doll, she's welcome to take it. Intrigued, Sang-ji wonders if the doll is a gift from his girlfriend. Fortunately, Cheon-fei and the others fill her in, revealing that Dwan Jak-soo is so busy with work that he hardly has time for a girlfriend. They laugh about the doll, explaining that it's just a decoration he keeps on his bed. Sang-ji put the fox doll back in her school bag. Wanting to avoid doing her homework, Sang-ji purposely left it with Duan Jakshu. When she came back, she used Sang-yan's mobile phone to call him. They made plans to meet the next day at 6:40, and Duan Jakshu agreed to accompany her to write essays at the station. Sang-ji quickly set her alarm for 5:30, placed the fox doll next to her, and fell asleep peacefully. At 6 o'clock, she woke up on time, got ready, and rushed to the station. She anxiously waited, worried whether Duan Jakshu would show up. It reminded her of her second year of junior high school, when she used to fret and wonder if he would come, just like she had done for the whole class back then. That day, Sang-ji waited alone for a long time after school, sitting in her seat, but she never saw Duan Jakshu. Distraught and upset, she muttered angrily about liars as she left, and in her frustration, she accidentally tripped and fell. Just then, Duan Jakshu appeared. Sang-ji, still irritated, complained about him being late, and Duan Jakshu immediately apologized. Now, Sang-ji was waiting for Duan Jakshu at the bus stop. When his call came through, she thought he was late and muttered angrily that he would never be able to find a girlfriend. But to her surprise, the next moment, a milk bottle was handed to her. Duan Jakshu had arrived early and even bought milk for her. He then dragged Sang-ji to a breakfast shop to do homework. He bought bread for himself and small cakes for her. As they sat there, Sang-ji would glance back at him from time to time, remembering the day they went to the teacher's office together. Duan Jakshu had pretended to be Sang-yan, taking the scolding meant for Sang-ji. In reality, Sang-ji's academic performance wasn't an issue. She had always been the top of her class. However, the teacher had kept criticizing her attitude toward learning. Duan Jakshu let everything go in one ear and out the other, but he didn't forget to ask Sang-ji to apologize to the teacher. Then, with a few well-placed compliments, he made the teacher happy, concluding that the conversation had been very successful. Finally, Sang-ji and Sang-yan were mercifully released from the discussion. Pulling away from the memory, Sang-ji asked Duan Jakshu where he was from and if he would be going home for the holidays. Duan Jakshu didn't answer her questions directly, and instead told her to focus on her homework with a smile. Before Sang-ji left for school, Duan Jakshu slipped a piece of paper into her school bag. After peeking at her composition, he had written a note for her, which made Sang-ji blush when she read it. Just before Sang-ji could open the paper, her friend arrived. Fu Jiangchu, still chasing after her, invited her to his birthday party next week. Sang-ji, uninterested, dismissed the invitation and went to the classroom, where she pulled out the bottle of milk Duan Jakshu had bought. Her friend asked in surprise, since she was allergic to milk. When Sang-ji got home, instead of putting the milk in the fridge, she took it to her room like a prized possession. She then opened the paper Duan Jakshu had written. He had crafted the composition in her tone, starting with helping her brother move. It shifted to mention Duan Jakshu himself, and at the end, he added a sweet note about being happy to see little Sang-ji again. Sang-ji's heart was racing as she carefully tucked the piece of paper away, almost protectively. She quickly added Duan Jakshu on WeChat, and to her surprise, he accepted the request right away. Sang-ji's mother grew concerned when she saw the bottle of milk in Sang-ji's room. She quickly dumped the milk inside and kept the empty bottle to herself. With the weekend approaching, Sang-ji's parents decided to attend a friend's wedding, and they arranged for Sang-yan to come home and keep Sang-ji company. On the weekend, Sang-yan came to pick Sang-ji up for dinner. Although Sang-ji initially didn't want to go, she quickly changed her mind when she heard that Sang-yan planned to eat with his roommate. She immediately apologized and got ready to go out. As they drove, Sang-ji was disappointed to find that only Qian-fei was sitting in the back seat. But her mood brightened when they went to pick up Duan Jakshu, and her heart skipped a beat. Duan Jakshu, looking sleepy, fell asleep in the back seat. When he noticed Sang-ji watching him, he teased her for not greeting him. Sang-ji timidly called out, "Hello, brother," but Duan Jakshu, not taking her seriously, playfully asked why she blushed every time she saw him. This question made both Sang-yan and Qian-fei complain about Duan Jakshu being a bad influence, and Sang-ji couldn't help but silently agree. When they arrived at the place, Sang-ji wanted to stay in the car with Sang-yan, but Sang-yan tossed the responsibility to Duan Jakshu. Feeling unwell, Sang-ji excused herself to find a bathroom. Duan Jakshu noticed the bloodstains on her skirt and quickly followed her. He asked her to go inside and wait for him while he went to get some things. Sang-ji saw herself in the mirror and felt embarrassed as she realized what had happened. Unsure how to handle the situation, he called Sang-yeon for help. The two of them secretly bought sanitary napkins like thieves, and Dwan Jak-soo also picked out a skirt similar to the one Sang-ji was wearing. When Sang-ji received the items from a girl who brought them into the bathroom, she felt even more embarrassed. She hesitated before coming out, relieved to find that only Sang-yeon was waiting by the door. Both Sang-yeon and Dwan Jak-soo stayed silent about what had happened. They simply said that Sang-ji had gone to catch a baby and refused to come back. Dwan Jak-soo poured her a glass of warm water and made sure she hadn't eaten any beef or mutton, the foods she was allergic to. She didn't dare say a word and reluctantly ate what remained. After the meal, Cheon Fei enthusiastically suggested taking Sang-ji to play the claw machine. At some point, Dwan Jak-soo quietly appeared behind her, offering, "Brother will help you win it." Sang-ji's heartbeat quickened as she watched him skillfully grab a doll for her. Handing it to her, he teased, "Don't cry anymore." The memory of Dwan Jak-soo helping her back in junior high resurfaced. That day, when he accompanied her to the teacher, Dwan Jak-soo jokingly threatened to call Sang-yeon to teach her a lesson. Panicked, Sang-ji immediately burst into tears, prompting Dwan Jak-soo to relent. Later, he insisted on escorting her home, reassuring her along the way that he wouldn't tell on her, as long as she promised to study hard and avoid causing trouble. Before leaving, Dwan Jak-soo even gave her a replacement light bulb to fix a broken one at her house, further endearing himself to Sang-ji. Now, holding the doll that Dwan Jak-soo had won, Sang-ji felt conflicted, recalling how he always managed to strike a balance between teasing her and looking out for her. Later, Jen-ru dragged Sang-ji to meet Fu Jung-chu. Unexpectedly, the shop they arrived at turned out to be where Dwan Jak-soo worked part-time. While ordering, Sang-ji couldn't help but sneak glances at him. Noticing her curiosity, Dwan Jak-soo joked with her and insisted on treating her to dessert. As Sang-ji sat there, she overheard a conversation between Dwan Jak-soo and the store manager about an advance on his salary. She couldn't help but wonder, was he working part-time because he was struggling financially? The thought lingered in her mind as she quietly observed him from across the room. When Fu Jung-chu arrived and saw Dwan Jak-soo, he greeted him cheerfully as "Brother Dwan Jak-soo." Curious, he turned to Sang-ji and asked why Dwan Jak-soo was working here if his family wasn't struggling financially. Sang-ji didn't respond, keeping her thoughts to herself. They had barely taken a few bites of dessert when Fu Jung-chu insisted on taking them somewhere to play. Before they left, Dwan Jak-soo reminded them to make sure they returned home before dark. Sang-ji, however, returned to the shop after the others had left. Gathering her courage, she approached Dwan Jak-soo to tell him that if he was short on money, he didn't have to treat her to dessert. Dwan Jak-soo brushed off her concern with a lighthearted remark, insisting that he could afford it. Still, Sang-ji placed some money on the table and quickly ran off before he could stop her. When Dwan Jak-soo noticed the extra cash, his eyes reddened, a mixture of gratitude and discomfort washing over him. At Fu Jung-chu's birthday party, Fu Jung-chu mustered the courage to confess his feelings to Sang-ji, but she fled before he could finish. Determined, Fu Jung-chu followed her outside, pleading with her to listen. However, Sang-ji had no interest in his words. Just when the situation grew tense, Dwan Jak-soo appeared, his presence alone enough to scare Fu Jung-chu away. Afterward, Dwan Jak-soo gently reminded Sang-ji about the importance of not hurting others' feelings, even when rejecting them. Sang-ji quickly refuted his implication, claiming she wasn't in a relationship. Dwan Jak-soo reassured her, explaining that being admired is a good thing and that kindness in rejection is just as important. Before leaving, he returned the money Sang-ji had left earlier, assuring her that he wasn't in dire financial straits and appreciated her thoughtfulness. Following Fu Jung-chu's birthday, Jen-ru began ignoring Sang-ji, leaving her confused. When the class teacher assigned Sang-ji to participate in the school's sports meet, she went along with it. Though Jen-ru chose to cheer for Fu Jung-chu rather than support Sang-ji. During the event, Sang-yeon and Dwan Jak-soo coincidentally showed up to monitor the games. Sang-yeon couldn't resist teasing Sang-ji about her height, but Dwan Jak-soo thoughtfully placed a hat on her head to shield her from the sun. He also stepped in to stop Sang-yeon from teasing her too much, showing his usual care and attentiveness. During her event, Sang-ji hesitated in front of the pole and failed to complete her jump several times. On her final attempt, she twisted her ankle. Sang-yeon, clearly worried, carried her to the infirmary, with Dwan Jak-soo following closely behind. In the infirmary, Teacher Chen from her junior high recognized Dwan Jak-soo and assumed he was Sang-ji's older brother. Panicked, Sang-ji covered Sang-yan's mouth before he could correct the misunderstanding, blurting out that Sang-yan was her father instead. While Sang-yan fretted about taking her to the hospital, Duan-jakshu calmly disinfected and treated her sprained foot. Sang-ji couldn't help but feel touched by his care, thinking that he treated her even better than Sang-yan. However, she also noticed how attentive Duan-jakshu was to another girl who had fallen during the event, which made her feel slightly uncomfortable. She realized that while Duan-jakshu was kind to her, he extended the same kindness to everyone. Due to her injury, Sang-yan and Duan-jakshu alternated taking Sang-ji to and from school over the next few days, ensuring she didn't strain her sprained foot. After school, Zhenru unexpectedly asked Sang-ji to go shopping with her. At the same time, Duan-jakshu was waiting for Sang-ji outside the school gate, but the security guard informed him that no one was left in the school. Meanwhile, Zhenru led Sang-ji through various shops, wandering aimlessly for what felt like hours. Finally, Zhenru revealed her true intentions. She wanted to go to an internet cafe. When Sang-ji refused, Zhenru went in alone. Concerned for her safety, Sang-ji hesitated but decided to follow her. Once inside, Sang-ji realized Zhenru's real motive. She wasn't there to use the internet, but had been coerced by an older senior girl who was extorting money from her. Zhenru, too frightened to stand up for herself, had lured Sang-ji into the situation, hoping she could help. The senior girls turned Sang-ji's school bag inside out and demanded that she bring money the next day. Heartbroken and angry, Sang-ji felt a wave of betrayal. She now understood why Zhenru had suddenly reached out to her. Disillusioned, she told Zhenru to explain everything to her parents and left on her own, limping away despite Zhenru's tearful apologies. In a quiet alley, Sang-ji ran into Duan-jakshu, who had been searching for her for hours. Overwhelmed, she broke down in tears and leaned against his shoulder. Sensing something was wrong, Duan-jakshu gently bought her a juice and asked if she had been bullied. Though reluctant to trouble him, Sang-ji eventually confessed the entire incident. Hearing how Zhenru had treated her, Duan-jakshu grew visibly upset. He firmly told Sang-ji to avoid Zhenru from now on, and emphasized the importance of telling her parents about situations like this in the future. Duan-jakshu then took Sang-ji home. Despite the day's events, Sang-ji felt a sense of comfort sitting on the back of Duan-jakshu's bicycle. When they reached her house, Duan-jakshu once again encouraged Sang-ji to speak to her parents about what happened, offering her the stolen money that he'd quietly replaced out of his own pocket. Limping inside, but with her spirits somewhat lifted, Sang-ji retreated to her room and reflected on the day. She wrote down a small secret she had come to realize about herself, that she might actually like someone. That someone was Duan-jakshu. Folding the piece of paper into a tiny star, she added it to her wishing bottle, her heart filled with a mixture of embarrassment and budding affection. The following day, Sang-yan and Duan-jakshu, along with their two roommates, decided to confront the group responsible for bullying Sang-ji. To their surprise, it turned out to be a group of girls. Sang-yan, unwilling to hit girls but still protective of his sister, made it clear that their behavior was unacceptable. Along with Duan-jakshu and Qian-fei, they managed to retrieve the money stolen from Sang-ji through a friendly discussion. With their mission accomplished, they left and Sang-ji got her wallet back and immediately handed 50 yuan to Duan-jakshu to repay him. As Qian-fei observed, Sang-ji seemed to resemble Duan-jakshu's little sister, though Sang-ji, now in her second year of junior high, secretly wished he was her older brother. Meanwhile, Zhenru transferred to another school. Before leaving, she left a note on Sang-ji's desk that simply said, "I'm sorry." Sang-ji didn't respond, merely giving it a quick, indifferent glance before discarding it. When Sang-ji's final exam results were released, she had performed impressively, except in physics, which she barely passed. Her parents, wanting her to consider her future more seriously, decided to arrange tutoring for her during the winter break. However, they assigned Sang-yan as her tutor, much to Sang-ji's dismay. The lessons quickly devolved into endless bickering and petty fights, and Sang-ji eventually suggested they find someone else. Not long after, Sang-ji's mother hired a new tutor. The night before her first session, Sang-ji made up her mind to take matters into her own hands. Determined to avoid yet another unwanted teacher, she planned an escape and resolved to sneak out early the next morning. Sang-ji had carefully planned to sneak out early before the new tutor arrived. However, when she passed the kitchen, she froze in surprise. Duan-jakshu was there, casually making instant noodles. At the dining table, Sang-yan nonchalantly revealed that Duan-jakshu was her new tutor. Sang-ji felt her face heat up as she quietly sat down to eat. The instant noodles were simple, but Duan Jiaxu had thoughtfully added a poached egg, and Sang-ji couldn't help but feel a flutter of happiness. Though she had initially been dreading the lessons, Sang-ji's attitude shifted completely. She eagerly grabbed her books and joined Duan Jiaxu in Sang-yan's room. But not all the time was spent on studies. Duan Jiaxu and Sang-yan were soon engrossed in a video game. Seizing the moment, Sang-ji sneakily picked up her phone and snapped a picture of Duan Jiaxu. Her triumph didn't last long. He caught her in the act. Grinning, Duan Jiaxu leaned toward the camera and made a playful pose. Embarrassed, Sang-ji tried to change the subject, while Sang-yan seemed oblivious to the exchange. Later, Sang-ji discreetly edited Duan Jiaxu's contact name to Brother Jiaxu. But before she could enjoy her little secret, Duan Jiaxu returned with a plate of sliced watermelon and a physics book. Sitting beside her, he confidently asked to see the photo she had just taken. Panicked, Sang-ji scrambled to change the subject back to physics. Despite her protests that she understood nothing, Duan Jiaxu patiently broke down the concepts for her. His teaching style made even physics seem approachable, and Sang-ji couldn't help but admire his confidence and kindness. During a break, Sang-ji worked up the courage to ask why Duan Jiaxu chose to attend university in Nanwu. He explained that he had a passion for the gaming industry, and since Nanwu was a hub for game development, it was the perfect place for him to chase his dreams. Their lessons became a routine. Duan Jiaxu spent 3 days a week tutoring Sang-ji and 4 days focusing on his own commitments. One afternoon, after noticing how tired he looked, Sang-ji gently draped a coat over him while he dozed off for a few minutes. To spark Sang-ji's interest in physics, Duan Jiaxu decided to take her to the Science and Technology Museum. The interactive exhibits and fascinating phenomena left Sang-ji thrilled and curious. Amidst the fun, Duan Jiaxu offered her heartfelt advice about pursuing her dreams and staying focused. By the end of the day, the two made a pact to work hard together and support each other in achieving their goals. Sang-ji returned home with a newfound motivation and a growing admiration for her tutor. Sang-ji had a passion for drawing, a hobby she often turned to for comfort. Duan Jiaxu noticed her talent and encouraged her to keep at it, complimenting her creativity. During one of their conversations, Sang-ji hesitated before asking if falling in love might delay someone's dreams. She wondered aloud if having a girlfriend would mean he wouldn't treat her as well anymore. Duan Jiaxu brushed it off with a light-hearted comment, suggesting that a good partner would only add to the kindness she received. Later that evening, Sang-ji realized she had left her drawing book at the Science and Technology Museum. She called the staff, who told her that Duan Jiaxu had retrieved it. Anxiety crept in as she recalled the pages filled with sketches of him. When Duan Jiaxu returned the book the next day, her nerves were on edge, imagining the worst, that he had seen the drawings. At home, Sang-yan noticed Sang-ji acting unusually and jumped to conclusions. He assumed she was falling for someone and retreated to his dorm in frustration, grumbling about her priorities. Duan Jiaxu calmed him down, explaining that such feelings were natural for her age and didn't necessarily mean trouble. To divert suspicion, Sang-ji fabricated a story about an online crush, even pretending to be upset about an imaginary failed relationship during their next lesson. Duan Jiaxu took her at her word, reminding her to focus on her studies and avoid distractions like early relationships. Although Sang-ji felt relieved that her secret was safe, Duan Jiaxu's advice left her conflicted. Her feelings for him were growing, but she knew the distance between them was something she couldn't easily overcome. Sang-ji had grown comfortable with her tutoring sessions with Duan Jiaxu, finding both his teaching and his presence reassuring. During one of their lessons, she boldly proclaimed that she couldn't resist the idea of love. She reasoned that if someone close to her started dating, she'd want to follow suit. Her confidence faltered, though, when Duan Jiaxu quickly dismissed the notion, advising her to focus on herself and not chase after fleeting emotions. His stern yet gentle tone left her momentarily flustered, but she didn't push back. As the weeks passed, Sang-ji made remarkable progress in her studies under Duan Jiaxu's guidance. His explanations were clear and patient, and he always seemed to know how to keep her engaged. However, all good things come to an end, and Duan Jiaxu informed her that this would be his last lesson. He had other commitments and couldn't continue tutoring her. Sang-ji's disappointment was palpable. Her usual cheer was replaced with a quiet sadness. Noticing her reaction, Duan Jiaxu promised to reward her whenever she achieved a milestone in her studies. The thought of earning his praise brightened her mood, albeit temporarily. After the session, Sang-ji's parents invited Duan Jiaxu to join them for their New Year's Eve celebration, but he declined politely. explaining that he needed to return to school. Hearing this, Sang-ji hurried to her room, where she had prepared a red envelope for him. Inside, she had tucked a small note wishing him a happy new year, folded into the shape of tiny stars. She hesitated at first, worried he might refuse the gift, but then took advantage of the bustling preparations downstairs to slip the envelope into his coat pocket unnoticed. The next day, New Year's Eve, the Sang family gathered to celebrate. Sang-ji and her brother, Sang-yeon, exchanged playful banter as they received their red envelopes from their parents. Sang-ji's envelope contained a pleasant surprise, a brand new phone. Sang-yeon's, on the other hand, was notably lighter, much to his chagrin. Sang-ji received a New Year's message from Dwon Jakshu. Her heart soared at the sight of his name, and she quickly replied with warm greetings of her own, a small smile tugging at her lips. Meanwhile, Dwon Jakshu spent his New Year's Eve alone in his school dormitory. The silence was heavy, but he seemed used to it. However, his solitude was broken by an urgent phone call. The voice on the other end informed him that his father had been hospitalized with a severe lung infection and required immediate surgery. He was needed to sign the consent forms. Without hesitation, Dwon Jakshu packed his belongings and returned to his hometown, Yihae, on New Year's Eve. When the school term resumed, Sang-ji was eager for her promised reward from Dwon Jakshu. However, she soon learned from her brother that Dwon Jakshu had left for Yihae. The news left her with a strange, unfamiliar ache in her chest. Though she didn't know the details of his sudden departure, the thought of him being far away dampened her spirits. As she reflected on their time together, she realized just how much she had come to cherish their connection, even if it was destined to remain unspoken. After meeting Dwon Jakshu for the first time, Sang-ji couldn't help but look forward to Sang-yeon's return trips home, wondering if Dwon Jakshu would come along. Each time Sang-yeon arrived alone, Sang-ji felt a tinge of disappointment. One evening, Sang-yeon casually mentioned that Dwon Jakshu was busy with part-time jobs to make money, which piqued Sang-ji's curiosity. However, her brother reassured her that none of his roommates, including Dwon Jakshu, had girlfriends. That revelation secretly made Sang-ji happy. Her joy grew when she received a small gift from Dwon Jakshu, a little black dog plushie. Sang-ji hugged the doll tightly, thinking it bore an amusing resemblance to Sang-yeon, though she didn't say so aloud. She wanted to return the gesture and send Dwon Jakshu something meaningful, but when she brought it up, he politely refused, saying it wasn't necessary. Despite this, Sang-ji decided she would prepare a special gift to give him at his upcoming graduation ceremony, which they had agreed she would attend with her father. Unbeknownst to Sang-ji, life wasn't as carefree for Dwon Jakshu as it seemed. After their phone call, a girl approached him on campus and handed him some money, insisting that he didn't need to work so hard. Dwon Jakshu's reaction was distant, his expression unreadable as he coldly refused the money. He pocketed his emotions and carried on, but it was clear that his life bore unseen burdens. On the day of the graduation ceremony, Sang-ji arrived with her father, brimming with excitement. The moment she spotted Dwon Jakshu in his bachelor's gown, her eyes lit up, and she hurried over to him with a bouquet of flowers. Her nervous energy made her forget about the gift she had carefully hidden behind her back. Handing him the flowers, she blurted out congratulations, her voice soft and filled with admiration. Dwon Jakshu, touched by her gesture, smiled warmly and thanked her. He then reassured her that graduation didn't mean they wouldn't see each other again. "I'm not like the others," he said, promising to come back and visit her whenever he could. His words eased her worries, but a flicker of sadness lingered in her heart. She didn't want him to go too far away. As the day went on, Dwon Jakshu said his goodbyes to his classmates, many of whom he knew he might never see again. While others celebrated with laughter and excitement, Dwon Jakshu carried a quiet heaviness, knowing that leaving school also meant returning to Yihae and the responsibilities waiting for him there. That night, during the graduation party, the atmosphere was lively and chaotic. Everyone was drinking and celebrating, but Dwon Jakshu seemed lost in thought. After the festivities, he took the heavily intoxicated Sang-yeon home, planning to stay in a nearby hotel. However, when Sang's mother learned about this, she insisted he stay at their house instead. Sang-ji, eager to help, quickly led Dwon Jakshu upstairs to Sang-yeon's room. She rushed to prepare fresh toiletries for him, her heart racing the entire time. The thought of Dwon Jakshu staying under the same roof filled her with a nervous excitement she couldn't quite explain. Thankfully, Dwon Jakshu hadn't been drinking, so there was no need for hangover soup. However, late that night, she noticed that his light was still on. Curious and concerned, she quietly approached him to ask why he wasn't asleep. Duan Jiaxu tried to brush it off, claiming he was fine, but Sang Ji could sense his unease. Gently, she encouraged him to open up, offering to simply stay with him if he didn't want to talk. Her persistence eventually paid off. Duan Jiaxu shared a glimpse of his burdens, mentioning the overwhelming pressure of creditors. Alarmed, Sang Ji initially misunderstood, thinking he owed a fortune. She even considered offering him her own savings to help. Duan Jiaxu reassured her that he meant obligations of a different kind, responsibilities that weighed heavily on him. Despite this clarification, Sang Ji remained worried. Later that night, she scribbled a wish on a small note to save enough money someday to help her big brother Duan Jiaxu with his debts. This little act of determination gave her a sense of purpose. Before dawn, Duan Jiaxu quietly packed his things and left, trying not to disturb the household. From the balcony, Sang Ji spotted him leaving. Half asleep, she waved goodbye as he glanced back and waved in return. A short while later, he texted her, explaining that he had to catch an early flight back to Yihei and reminding her not to forget about her exams. As school resumed, Sang Ji entered her third year of high school with a renewed sense of purpose. Her goal was now Yihei University, the place where Duan Jiaxu lived. She channeled all her energy into studying, determined to achieve this dream. Each time she made progress in her studies, Duan Jiaxu would send her a small gift as encouragement. These tokens of support became her motivation, fueling her dedication. However, Sang Ji's world came crashing down one day when she overheard Sang Yan gossiping on the phone. He casually mentioned that Duan Jiaxu had a girlfriend. Stunned, Sang Ji felt her heart sink. She wanted to message Duan Jiaxu and confirm, but doubt and fear held her back. Her mind raced with conflicting emotions, hurt, confusion, and a twinge of jealousy. After all, Duan Jiaxu had once promised her that if he got a girlfriend, she would be the first to know. The thought of someone else occupying his heart left her feeling lost and hollow. Sang Ji, unable to suppress her emotions, decided to confront Duan Jiaxu in person about the rumors. With this in mind, she impulsively headed to Yihei. When Sang Yan discovered her disappearance, he was furious. Panicking at the thought of his younger sister wandering alone, he immediately contacted Duan Jiaxu and asked him to find her. Meanwhile, Sang Ji had crafted an excuse to justify her trip, claiming she was there to meet an online dating partner. While her explanation managed to convince her parents and Sang Yan to some extent, their anger and concern were palpable. Unbeknownst to them, Sang Ji's true intention wasn't about a fictitious boyfriend. Her heart had always been set on Duan Jiaxu. When Duan Jiaxu finally found her, he wasn't alone. He arrived with a young woman, sparking an avalanche of questions in Sang Ji's mind. Was this his girlfriend? What was their relationship? Overwhelmed by jealousy and insecurity, she couldn't focus on Duan Jiaxu's stern reprimands about her reckless actions. Instead, she tuned out his words, her heart sinking deeper into despair. As Duan Jiaxu tried to reason with her patiently, Sang Ji broke down into tears. She blurted out that her supposed online dating partner had rejected her because she was too young. Her statement left Duan Jiaxu both amused and concerned. He reassured her that, in time, she would meet someone far better. But his comforting words unintentionally struck a nerve. In Sang Ji's mind, Duan Jiaxu himself had already found someone better. Overcome with emotion, Sang Ji pulled Duan Jiaxu's coat around herself and ran off to cry. She found a secluded spot, clutching the jacket tightly, and allowed her tears to flow freely. In her hand, she clutched a picture she had seen earlier of Duan Jiaxu with the mysterious girl. The image only deepened her sadness, and her sobs grew louder. When she eventually returned, the girl was gone, and Duan Jiaxu was waiting with a plane ticket in hand, ready to send her back home. Despite her heartbreak, there was still some time before her flight. Hoping to cheer her up, Duan Jiaxu took her out for a meal. However, Sang Ji barely touched her food. She sat quietly, lost in thought, as she wrestled with her feelings. In her bag, she had a small gift for Duan Jiaxu, a plush black dog, but she couldn't muster the courage to give it to him. As Duan Jiaxu stepped away to take a phone call, Sang Ji secretly slipped the money for her plane ticket into his wallet. She didn't want to be a burden, even as she longed for his attention. When it was time to part ways, Duan Jiaxu escorted Sang Ji to the airport. Just before boarding, she made a bittersweet request. If he ever fell in love, he didn't need to tell her. For a moment, Duan Jiaxu seemed surprised by her words. Holding the plush bear she had gifted him, he smiled warmly, and Sang Ji finally allowed herself a small, fleeting smile in return. At the airport, Sang-yan was waiting to pick her up. He had planned to scold her for her reckless behavior, but when he saw Sang-ji break into hysterical sobbing, all his anger melted away. He was left awkwardly trying to comfort her, unsure of how to handle her emotional outburst. When they returned home, Sang-ji braced herself for the inevitable lecture from her parents. However, to her surprise, they didn't reprimand her. Instead, they treated her as if nothing had happened, casually inviting her to sit down and eat dinner. The warmth of their normalcy left Sang-ji both comforted and conflicted as she tried to process her feelings. After Sang-ji went upstairs, her parents finally dropped their composed facade, exchanging worried glances as they carefully monitored her reaction. Sang-yan reassured them, explaining that Sang-ji already understood her mistake. He added that she had cried the entire way back, pleading with them not to criticize her anymore. Despite their collective relief, the family decided to quietly pretend that the incident hadn't happened, taking care not to bring it up again. However, to prevent a repeat, they agreed to take Sang-ji's ID card and keep it securely stored. In her room, Sang-ji sat surrounded by her emotions. She gathered all the items related to Duan Jiaxu, including the cherished star notes, and carefully placed them into a box. She stared at the note she had written before, her wish to be admitted to Yihei University. Quietly, she crossed out the goal with trembling hands. Hugging the box close, she sat in silence, weighed down by a mix of sadness and determination. A deep part of her wanted to say goodbye to Duan Jiaxu, to erase him from her heart. Time passed, and soon Sang-ji achieved her goal. She was admitted to Yihei University. As she settled into university life, she found joy in new beginnings. Military training and classes kept her occupied, and she built connections with her roommates. Ningwei, who loved making videos, was full of energy and constantly animated their dorm life. Yu Xin, the cool and laid-back one, added a touch of calm to their group, while Wang Wang brought light-hearted humor. Their friendship blossomed, creating a lively and supportive circle for Sang-ji. One day, the four friends encountered Wang Ming from the Physical Education Institute. Ningwei, always the outgoing one, quickly added him on WeChat, suggesting he bring his friends to a future gathering. Shortly after, they had a reason to celebrate. It was Ningwei's birthday. The group organized a fun-filled party at a KTV. Amid the laughter and music, Sang-ji found herself momentarily swept up in the lively atmosphere. However, as she moved through the crowd and into the box, she was unaware that someone significant was near. Meanwhile, Duan Jiaxu had been busy with work. His career was thriving, but it came with added pressures, including persistent suggestions for blind dates. On this particular day, someone introduced him to Xiao Shu, a beautiful and well-mannered woman. Despite the pleasant introduction, Duan Jiaxu remained detached, his mind occupied with unresolved emotions. Back at the party, Sang-ji, feeling a bit overwhelmed by the KTV's noise and unfamiliar crowd, stepped outside for a breath of fresh air. As she moved toward the staircase, her heart skipped a beat when she saw someone sitting there, Duan Jiaxu. He looked up, his sharp eyes immediately catching the small cigarette box tucked in Sang-ji's jacket pocket, likely left behind by a friend. Without missing a beat, his first words were critical, reminding her not to smoke. Sang-ji, slightly flustered, defended herself, explaining it wasn't hers. But Duan Jiaxu wasn't entirely mollified. He quickly shifted the conversation, his tone tinged with annoyance. "You've been here at university for a while now. Military training is over, and even during the National Day holiday, you didn't come to see me. What, am I just someone you've completely forgotten?" Sang-ji frozen. The words white-eyed wolf fell from his lips, an old nickname he'd used in jest before, but this time it stung. She couldn't look him in the eye, her heart twisting as he expressed his frustration. For months, Duan Jiaxu had sent her countless messages, updates, jokes, and questions, all left unanswered. He couldn't help but ask, his voice softer now, "What did I do wrong? Why are you avoiding me?" Sang-ji's cheeks flushed as she tried to hold her ground, stubbornly focusing on one thing. "Don't call me a child anymore. I'm not a kid." Her defiance carried an undertone of vulnerability, as if pleading for him to see her in a new light. After leaving the staircase, Sang-ji declined Duan Jiaxu's offer to send her home. Instead, she returned to the KTV box to continue celebrating Ningwei's birthday. While the party carried on, Sang-ji received a call from her mother, who checked in with her as usual. Sang-ji used this moment as an excuse to step away and take the call. Internally, she reassured herself that she had changed. She was no longer a child, she had grown up. In a small act of defiance, she even muttered a curse about an old thing, venting her frustration. Unexpectedly, as she approached the door to leave, she saw Dwan Jaksu waiting outside. His expression darkened when he overheard her muttered curse. "What did you just say?" he asked, clearly unimpressed. Despite his irritation, he still insisted on giving her a ride back to school. During the drive, the atmosphere in the car was tense, marked by an awkward silence. Dwan Jaksu eventually broke it, his tone serious. "Why are you acting like this? What's going on between us?" He wanted an explanation, but Sang-ji was evasive, avoiding any clear answers. The only thing she would say was her insistence that she was no longer a child. She had grown up now. Shifting the conversation, Sang-ji asked about Dwan Jaksu's current life. She had heard he was playing games a lot lately, which surprised her. Dwan Jaksu, in turn, guessed that Sang-ji had worked hard to get into Yihei University because of an old online friend she had mentioned once. Sang-ji was quick to clarify, explaining that she had lost contact with that person long ago. Dwan Jaksu chuckled, noting that Sang-yan had told him the same thing but seemed annoyed by the idea. Sang-ji could feel her cheeks heating as she realized how much Dwan Jaksu had thought about her. When they arrived back at school, Dwan Jaksu handed Sang-ji a small jar of honey, advising her to mix it with water before bed. "It'll help with the headache tomorrow morning," he said casually, but his concern was evident. Sang-ji couldn't help but feel a pang of warmth at the gesture, even as a flurry of emotions swirled inside her. Sang-ji's curiosity grew. Why was Dwan Jaksu here in Yihei? Wasn't his home in this city? And what about his life now? Wasn't everything supposed to be fine? Did he really have a girlfriend? She hesitated to ask, but her mind lingered on the possibilities. The next morning, Sang-ji received a call from Sang-yan, who demanded an explanation for her late night. She assured him she hadn't been drinking. Meanwhile, Jung Ming, one of her classmates, texted to offer help next time she returned late. However, Sang-ji only replied to Dwan Jaksu's message. It felt natural, almost automatic, to keep that connection with him alive. Later, while chatting with her roommates, Sang-ji opened up about her feelings in a roundabout way. She mentioned a friend who liked her brother's friend and confided her concern. Did this person always think of her as a younger sister? Although her roommates quickly realized that this friend was actually Sang-ji herself, they didn't call her out on it. Instead, they listened with knowing smiles, letting her process her emotions at her own pace. Sang-yan asks Sang-ji to invite Dwan Jaksu to dinner when he is free. He is not complaining but genuinely cares about Sang-ji. Over the years, he has consistently sent gifts to Sang-ji on her birthdays, for good exam results, and during holidays, never once neglecting her. Sang-ji suddenly reflected on whether her recent behavior was unkind. After all, Dwan Jaksu had done nothing wrong and had always been kind to her. Dwan Jaksu held a meeting at his company to launch a Tianyan system. The prototype received great approval, but because the technology was too complex, it posed increased risks and was not approved for implementation at the time. Undeterred, Dwan Jaksu encouraged everyone in his team to stay motivated and work together. Sang-ji planned to invite Dwan Jaksu for a meal to express her gratitude. However, a message she sent him had been edited, leaving out the word "you." When Dwan Jaksu received the message, he called her, slightly amused, and asked if her phone was broken, making it impossible to type the word. Sang-ji hurriedly made up an excuse, saying that her father had told her to honor people who were 5 years older than her, and Dwan Jaksu happened to be exactly 5 years older. Meanwhile, Ningwei quickly found a boyfriend. Additionally, a suitor invited Sang-ji to go to the movies with her roommates. Though Sang-ji wanted to refuse because she had plans with Dwan Jaksu over the weekend, her roommates were eager to go, leaving her no choice but to agree. Dwan Jaksu received a courier package from Zhang Ying, which he immediately discarded as trash. He forwarded her final compensation and told her they would not contact each other again. Zhang Ying grew nervous upon seeing the message, but Dwan Jaksu paid her no attention. Despite the difficulties, the team decided to move forward with a new plan to include the Tianyan system. However, Dwan Jaksu seemed unwell and uninterested during this time. Sang-ji arrived at the restaurant where she had made an appointment with Dwan Jaksu. When he failed to show, she called him and sensed that he wasn't feeling well. Concerned, she asked for his company's address and rushed over. She found Dwan Jaksu pale and in pain from a stomachache. Sang-ji helped him get into a taxi, and in the process, she accidentally fell into his arms. There was no time to be embarrassed as they headed straight to the hospital. Duan Jiaxu was diagnosed with acute appendicitis and needed immediate surgery. Sang Ji was very nervous as he was wheeled into the operating room, knowing that he might not have sought medical help if not for her intervention. While waiting, Sang Ji spoke with her mother about Duan Jiaxu's condition. Her mother expressed sympathy for Duan Jiaxu, noting that he had no family to support him. Sang Ji was puzzled as her mother rarely spoke about Duan Jiaxu. She learned that Duan Jiaxu's mother had been ill and had borrowed money from Sang Yan's parents. Duan Jiaxu repaid the money within 6 months, but sadly, his mother passed away. This conversation deepened Sang Ji's understanding of why Duan Jiaxu had struggled during his college years. After the surgery, Duan Jiaxu urged Sang Ji to return to school, insisting that he was fine. Although reluctant and worried, Sang Ji obeyed. Duan Jiaxu, meanwhile, recalled the moment he accidentally kissed Sang Ji on the forehead during their trip to the hospital, concerned that she might feel uncomfortable about it. Sang Yan called to check on Duan Jiaxu, but Duan Jiaxu refrained from sharing too much. Eventually, Sang Ji decided to stay and take care of Duan Jiaxu, reasoning that if she were sick, he would undoubtedly do the same for her. While eating bread beside his hospital bed, Sang Ji amused Duan Jiaxu with her puffy cheeks, resembling a pufferfish. Since Duan Jiaxu was unable to get out of bed, Sang Ji wet a towel and gently wiped his face. As she watched his distracted expression, Sang Ji felt a mix of emotions she couldn't quite define. Sang Ji pushed a simple bed to sleep next to Duan Jiaxu. Though Duan Jiaxu felt bad for her, Sang Ji seemed to enjoy it. She took out her phone to send a message to her friends, quickly pressing the volume button to silence it. Duan Jiaxu kept his eyes closed, but then he suddenly spoke, asking her to tell him who had invited her to the movies. Sang Ji brushed it off, telling him not to meddle in the lives of young people since he wouldn't understand their world. The next morning, Sang Ji wiped Duan Jiaxu's face before leaving for class. He asked her to bring his computer from home, but she refused, firmly telling him he shouldn't work while sick. Duan Jiaxu was struck by how much she had grown up. Meanwhile, Sang Ji's roommate mentioned that Jiang Ming had been asking about her. Sang Ji apologized to Jiang Ming, explaining her relative was unwell, and offered to watch a movie with him another time. Restless, Duan Jiaxu tried to convince his boss to send him a computer, but his boss insisted he rest. Sang Ji visited Duan Jiaxu's home, curiously exploring. She was surprised to find a photo of herself among his belongings. Seeing a picture of Duan Jiaxu and his mother, she felt a pang of emotion and quietly introduced herself to the photo. While packing clothes and underwear for him, her hands trembled as she closed the closet door. Shortly after Sang Ji left, Jiang Ying arrived, visibly emotional. At the hospital, an elderly man was admitted to the next bed. Mistaking Sang Ji for Duan Jiaxu's wife, the man began advising him to marry her quickly to avoid delaying the young woman. Duan Jiaxu corrected him, explaining she was his younger sister, but the man misheard, thinking Duan Jiaxu was about to become a father. Sang Ji, frustrated, retorted loudly that Duan Jiaxu could be her father, which only deepened the misunderstanding. Annoyed, Sang Ji nearly fumed. Duan Jiaxu worked late into the night, much to Sang Ji's annoyance when she found out. She regretted bringing him a computer. As Duan Jiaxu prepared to be discharged, the elderly man continued to advise them to take care of each other and marry soon. Sang Ji, exasperated, sarcastically replied that they'd marry immediately. Duan Jiaxu teased her, further souring her mood. After taking him home, Sang Ji left notes all over his apartment, reminding him to eat properly, take his medicine, and avoid staying up late. She explained she couldn't visit often because of homework, but promised to meet him when he recovered. As she left, she reassured herself that it was fine. She was just his younger sister after all. Yet Duan Jiaxu diligently followed her instructions, eating well and resting. Worried that Sang Ji might still be upset, Duan Jiaxu sought advice from Sister Siyun. She suggested he invite Sang Ji out for a meal to clear the air. Meanwhile, Jiang Ying continued to call, but Duan Jiaxu firmly maintained that there was no reason for further contact. Sang Ji went to the movies with Jiang Ming, but he turned out to be easily frightened, much to her amusement. Sang Ji saw a claw machine in the mall and remembered the time Duan Jiaxu helped her win a doll. She decided to try her luck and caught one. Seeing this, Jiang Ming went to another claw machine and also caught a doll. They ended up with matching stuffed puppies, which Jiang Ming gave to Sang Ji. Back at school, her roommates invited her to the central square for New Year's Eve, but Sang Ji declined, citing the cold weather and large crowds. Jiang Ming looked visibly disappointed when Sang Ji didn't join them. While her roommates went out, Sang Ji stayed in the dorm and ordered takeout. She received a call from Duan Jiaxu, who invited her to a company dinner where he could bring family. Sang-ji quickly denied being his family member, so Dwan Jak-soo suggested they have a meal together to settle the debt of her owed dinner. At the restaurant, Dwan Jak-soo apologized for the hospital incident, but Sang-ji brushed it off as unimportant. As they enjoyed their meal, Jung Ying appeared unexpectedly, angrily pouring water on Dwan Jak-soo. Sang-ji retaliated by throwing water back at Jung Ying, who was dragged away by a friend. Dwan Jak-soo stood protectively in front of Sang-ji, leaving both of them embarrassed by the scene. Sang-ji helped Dwan Jak-soo wipe his face and asked who Jung Ying was. Dwan Jak-soo explained she was his father's former creditor. Sang-ji recalled seeing Jung Ying before and reassured Dwan Jak-soo that he shouldn't let her bully him. Touched, Dwan Jak-soo thanked her solemnly. As snow began to fall, Sang-ji silently wished for Dwan Jak-soo's happiness and hoped to be the person by his side. Dwan Jak-soo also made a wish, hoping Sang-ji would always be happy and healthy. Meanwhile, Sang-ji's roommates were making their own wishes. Wang Wang's wish seemed to involve Jiang Ming, but Jiang Ming's thoughts were entirely on Sang-ji. Dwan Jak-soo encountered Jiang Ying again outside his building. She apologized for her earlier behavior but claimed Dwan Jak-soo owed her forever. She reminded him of the tragedy involving their fathers, but Dwan Jak-soo firmly stated he had repaid everything and owed her nothing. Jiang Ying persisted, saying Dwan's mother had promised to care for her. Dwan Jak-soo ignored her and reflected on the past. When his mother and he had gone to Jiang Ying's family to apologize, he had endured gossip and rejection from classmates, including Jiang Ying, who once had a crush on him. Pushing these memories aside, he felt relieved seeing a photo of himself with Sang-ji. As fireworks lit up the sky, Dwan Jak-soo watched from his rooftop and sent Sang-ji a picture. She replied with New Year's greetings, which he cherished. He considered changing her contact name to Gigi, a nickname from his family, but decided against it. Later, Qianfei excitedly announced his engagement in their group chat, calling Dwan Jak-soo late at night to gossip about his love life. Dwan Jak-soo found himself thinking of Sang-ji's face. Meanwhile, Sang-ji, wanting to praise Dwan Jak-soo for something, messaged him to say she would visit his company. After exams, Jiang Ming suggested going to a bar, but Sang-ji declined, claiming she needed to deliver an electronic peephole to a relative. When Sang-ji arrived at Dwan Jak-soo's company, he was nervous upon seeing her message. However, Jiang Ying was causing trouble downstairs again. As Sang-ji left the pier hole for Dwan Jak-soo, her brief interaction with him left her feeling misunderstood. She quietly left, hoping her feelings hadn't been too obvious. After all these years, Jiang Ying still couldn't let go of Dwan Jak-soo. Sang-ji, unaware of Jiang Ying's feelings, waited anxiously for Dwan Jak-soo to call and explain himself. Meanwhile, Dwan Jak-soo thought about Sang-ji and asked about her exam schedule and her plans to return home. Sang-ji replied truthfully, mentioning she had booked a ticket for the 19th. Dwan Jak-soo jotted it down on a sticky note and asked if they could have dinner together after her exams. Sang-ji, however, said she wouldn't have time. As the term neared its end, tensions ran high for everyone. Sang-ji suddenly suggested relaxing after the exams and her friends agreed, but Ning Wei had already been whisked away by her boyfriend. Wang Wang noticed something was bothering Sang-ji. She seemed upset over the past couple of days, but Sang-ji denied it, insisting everything was fine. After the exams, the group went out to have fun. At the bar, Jiang Ming sang a love song, but Sang-ji wasn't interested. When Dwan Jak-soo called, she told him where she was. Despite her telling him not to come, Dwan Jak-soo showed up. When Sang-ji stepped outside, Jiang Ming followed her. She had drunk too much and looked visibly uncomfortable. Just as Jiang Ming tried to support her, Dwan Jak-soo arrived and took over, leaving Jiang Ming with no choice but to leave. Sang-ji, drunk and stubborn, spoke her mind. Dwan Jak-soo gently carried her on his back like a child, coaxing her. On the way home, Sang-ji admitted she had a secret. She liked someone but wasn't happy about it. She described this person as kind to everyone, including her, which made her feel conflicted and upset. Dwan Jak-soo felt uneasy hearing her words but didn't press her for more. As Sang-ji dozed off in the car, Dwan Jak-soo quietly vowed to treat her better, worrying about entrusting her care to someone else. The next morning, Sang-ji woke up mortified by the previous night's events. Her roommates teased her, especially since the old relative she mentioned turned out to be incredibly handsome. Embarrassed, Sang-ji told them to stop her from drinking in the future, recalling how she had thrown up on Dwan Jak-soo. Too ashamed to face him, she didn't plan to ask for his help again. Yet, to her surprise, Dwan Jak-soo was already waiting at her school to pick her up. As they were loading her luggage into the car, Jiang Ming appeared and confessed. He admitted the song he sang was for her and that he had liked her for a long time. Sang-ji, caught off guard, could only muster a polite thank you. Duan Jiaxu witnessed the entire scene. On the drive to the airport, Sang Ji awkwardly explained that she had only gone to the bar to relax with her classmates. However, Duan Jiaxu mistakenly assumed that the boy who had just confessed to her was the one Sang Ji liked. Sang Ji denied it but struggled to explain further. Flustered, she said she liked a manly type, which only made Duan Jiaxu more curious. He teased her, questioning why her ideal man sounded suspiciously like a scumbag. Sang Ji quickly changed the subject, asking why Duan Jiaxu still didn't have a girlfriend. Duan Jiaxu, in turn, suggested she introduce someone to him, adding that anyone around her age would do. Sang Ji was taken aback. Was he teasing her? He had never said anything like that before. When Sang Ji returned home, her parents greeted her warmly, bustling to prepare her favorite dishes. Sang Yan, grumbling, dragged her luggage behind her. Sang Ji handed out New Year gifts, treats for her parents and a pair of asymmetric sunglasses for Sang Yan. Though he didn't like the sunglasses, he begrudgingly accepted them. During dinner, Sang Ji mentioned Duan Jiaxu, praising his quick recovery from appendicitis and his impressive gaming skills. Her parents immediately turned their attention to criticizing Sang Yan for being idle and skipping the blind dates they had arranged for him. Later, Sang Ji pulled Sang Yan aside and urged him to consider a blind date, maybe even with Duan Jiaxu, whom she suspected wanted a girlfriend. With mock seriousness, she warned that if Duan Jiaxu remained single, he might lead a miserable life. Sang Yan dismissed the idea, refusing to play matchmaker and suggesting Duan Jiaxu handle his own love life. In her room, Sang Ji discovered a stash of gifts from Duan Jiaxu tucked away in her closet. Thinking about his words in the car, she couldn't help feeling a pang of melancholy. Was he serious? To test the waters, she messaged him, claiming Sang Yan had a very young girlfriend. Duan Jiaxu asked if the girlfriend was an adult, and Sang Ji confirmed she was. Duan Jiaxu reassured her, saying being an adult and in college made it fine. While he tried to convince himself that Sang Ji was just gossiping about Sang Yan, his heart raced. He realized that matters of love were easy to process when they involved others, but when it came to Sang Ji, it unsettled him deeply. He mused that Sang Ji likely still saw him as an older brother, while she secretly wished he saw her as an equal. If they had met at this point in their lives, maybe their dynamic would have been different. But reality offered no ifs, and in Duan Jiaxu's eyes, she might always remain the 14-year-old sister of his good friend. During a business trip, Duan Jiaxu had dinner with his colleague, Qian Fei, who brought up the topic of the girl Duan Jiaxu liked, a subject he had avoided for a while. Feeling self-conscious about the age difference, Duan Jiaxu deflected, insisting Qian Fei didn't know her. When Qian Fei learned about Sang Ji's type, he confidently declared Duan Jiaxu the perfect fit. This left Duan Jiaxu uneasy. Could Sang Ji actually like him? On the day of Qian Fei's wedding, Duan Jiaxu messaged Sang Ji, letting her know he was in Nanwu and wanted to see her. At the wedding, Duan Jiaxu jokingly acknowledged Sang Yan as his brother, much to Sang Yan's annoyance. Sang Ji sat silently beside Duan Jiaxu, avoiding conversation. Sensing her discomfort, Duan Jiaxu teased her about not greeting anyone and asked how old her ideal boy was. Seeing Sang Ji flustered, Duan Jiaxu started to piece things together, realizing Qian Fei's insight might be correct. When Sang Ji tried to switch seats with Sang Yan, both men refused. After the meal, Sang Yan suggested drinking together, but Sang Ji excused herself and headed home. Duan Jiaxu followed, insisting on walking her. Along the way, he casually called her by her childhood nickname, Ziji, catching her off guard. She couldn't discern his intentions. On the way home, he not only returned her red envelope but also gave her a bracelet as a New Year's gift, engraved with her name. The gesture and the look in his eyes left Sang Ji overwhelmed and uncertain about his feelings. Sang Ji looked up the meaning of the bracelet Duan Jiaxu gave her and was disappointed to find it symbolized concern from an elder rather than something more personal. Despite her feelings, she informed her parents that Duan Jiaxu would be picking her up early the next morning, sparing them from having to wake up early to take her to the airport. Meanwhile, Duan Jiaxu stayed up all night fighting to secure tickets for them to travel back to Yihei together. After finally succeeding, he went to bed late, only to show up at Sang Ji's house early the next morning, bringing breakfast. When he noticed Sang Ji wasn't wearing the bracelet, he felt a tinge of disappointment. At the airport, they ran into Duan Jiaxu's high school classmate, Yuan Lang, who mistook Sang Ji for Duan Jiaxu's girlfriend. Yuan Lang then casually mentioned being with Jiang Ying, a name that piqued Sang Ji's curiosity. Upon learning Jiang Ying was the girl who once praised Duan Jiaxu, Sang Ji pretended nonchalance but probed further. Duan Jiaxu clarified that Zhang Ying wasn't his girlfriend and reassured Sang Ji that if he ever had a girlfriend, she'd be the first to know. Sang Ji, touched by his sincerity, remembered that Duan Jiaxu had always kept his promises to her. When Sang Ji arrived at her dormitory, she waved goodbye to Duan Jiaxu from the balcony. Her roommate, Ning Wei, immediately started teasing and gossiping. Sang Ji confided that Duan Jiaxu had been acting differently, more serious than usual, and wondered if he might like her too. However, she quickly dismissed the thought, reasoning that he had seen her grow up and probably couldn't have such feelings for her. Ning Wei, unbothered, suggested Sang Ji treat him normally and not overthink it. Meanwhile, Duan Jiaxu had pieced everything together. He realized Sang Ji's ideal man didn't exist and that she likely had feelings for him. Determined to address the situation, he called his friend Qian Fei for advice on how to pursue her properly. Knowing Sang Ji might believe he didn't see her that way, he resolved to clarify things. He called her, inviting her to dinner on Friday. Excited yet nervous, Sang Ji agreed, though she was unsure of his intentions. On Friday, both dressed up for their date. Sang Ji's roommates enthusiastically helped her get ready, sending her off with playful remarks as if she were going on a significant occasion. When Duan Jiaxu arrived, he mentioned introducing someone to her, which startled Sang Ji. She assumed he was introducing her to his girlfriend and hesitated to sit in the front seat, but Duan Jiaxu insisted. At the restaurant, a woman was already waiting, a familiar face from the airport. It turned out to be Siyun, Duan Jiaxu's boss. After exchanging looks with Duan Jiaxu, Siyun explained what had happened at the airport, confirming that she and Duan Jiaxu weren't romantically involved. Sang Ji realized Duan Jiaxu had orchestrated this explanation to avoid any misunderstandings. Overwhelmed and embarrassed, she decided to leave before dinner was over. Duan Jiaxu, understanding her discomfort, took her to a movie instead. Sang Ji messaged her roommate to let them know she'd be back late. She bought herself a drink but accidentally picked milk tea, forgetting her milk allergy. When Duan Jiaxu noticed, he rushed to replace it with a safer option. Unfortunately, the damage was already done. Midway through the movie, Sang Ji developed a rash and had to be rushed to the hospital by a concerned Duan Jiaxu. Duan Jiaxu prescribed medicine for Sang Ji, who shyly swallowed it while covering her face, worried he might notice her awkward expression. Still, she didn't miss the chance to compliment the milk tea, calling it delicious. When Duan Jiaxu mentioned the milk he had previously given her, Sang Ji quickly explained that she had shared it with her classmates, as keeping it would have been pointless. As Sang Ji scratched her face absent-mindedly, Duan Jiaxu took her hands to stop her and walked ahead, prompting Sang Ji to tease that it felt like he was walking a dog. Curious, Sang Ji asked why he had introduced himself to his colleagues as her friend that day, when he usually referred to himself as her brother's friend. Duan Jiaxu seemed like he wanted to say something but ultimately kept quiet. With Sang Ji's birthday approaching, Duan Jiaxu regretted not being able to bake her a cake, knowing she might have an allergic reaction. Interestingly, their birthdays were close, but Duan Jiaxu refrained from mentioning his own. Celebrating alone didn't seem worthwhile to him. Meanwhile, Sang Ji's roommates speculated about her and Duan Jiaxu's relationship. Wang Wang, one of her roommates, was teased about whether she liked pursuing someone one-sidedly, deepening her contemplation. When Sang Ji returned to the dormitory after her outing, she covered her face but was secretly delighted. The date had gone well. Sang Ji felt there might be mutual feelings between her and Duan Jiaxu, though her friends advised her to keep her feelings hidden and let him do the chasing. On her birthday, Sang Ji dressed up beautifully to meet Duan Jiaxu, but unexpectedly ran into Jiang Ming on the way. Jiang Ming gave her a gift and offered to celebrate her birthday with her. However, when he noticed Duan Jiaxu nearby, he sensibly left. Duan Jiaxu approached and teasingly asked Sang Ji if he resembled the boy she said she liked. Flustered, Sang Ji denied it, insisting she currently had no crush, joking that her previous one was like a central air conditioner, treating everyone around him kindly. Duan Jiaxu chuckled, commenting that she was good at making people sound guilty. While riding the bus, Sang Ji clung to Duan Jiaxu's coat for balance. The two planned to watch the movie they'd missed last time, and Sang Ji bought iced lemon tea. Duan Jiaxu, ever attentive, refused to let her drink it, reminding her to start taking care of herself. When Sang Ji's hands turned cold from holding the tea, Duan Jiaxu took it from her, warming it with his own hands. Playfully, he asked her to warm his hands in return, but when she declined, citing it as inappropriate, he agreed, humorously noting, "It's indeed inappropriate since there's no title yet." After the movie, Duan Jiaxu surprised Sang Ji by inviting her to his home. Sang Ji was astonished, recalling how he'd previously forbidden her from visiting his workplace or house. Duan Jiaxu explained that his earlier behavior had stemmed from his impatience to clarify things about Zhang Ying. At his home, Duan Jiaxu had prepared a rooftop birthday surprise for Sang Ji, complete with a specially made cake. Overwhelmed with joy, Sang Ji cherished this moment, her first birthday celebration with Duan Jiaxu, hoping for many more to come. He also presented her with a gift, hinting at something to check later. However, Duan Jiaxu's jealousy flared when he noticed Zhang Ming's gift among her belongings. Teasing her about how popular she seemed, he asked what it would take to win her heart. Sang Ji shared her simple criteria for a partner, and Duan Jiaxu seized the moment, asking, "Can I chase you?" Caught off guard, Sang Ji hesitated, unsure if he meant it seriously. Duan Jiaxu's sincerity, however, was unmistakable. He no longer wanted to be just her brother. Eventually, Sang Ji admitted that she would only truly understand her feelings for him if he pursued her. The tension eased, and Duan Jiaxu complimented her appearance, making Sang Ji blush. He offered to let her take the cake back to the dorm and promised to make her one every day if she enjoyed it, to which Sang Ji shyly agreed. Back at the dormitory, her roommates had also prepared a birthday cake, adding to the day's happiness. Sang Ji unpacked the gift from Duan Jiaxu and discovered it was a camera. To her surprise, the camera already contained a selfie of Duan Jiaxu's clavicle. Shocked and amused, Sang Ji called him shameless. Duan Jiaxu even messaged her, asking if she liked the photo. When Sang Ji teased that the image wasn't clear, Duan Jiaxu cheekily offered to send a high-resolution version if she agreed. Sang Ji labeled him a scheming old man. That night, after saying goodnight, Sang Ji changed Duan Jiaxu's contact name from Brother No to Suitor. Later, Sang Yan sent Sang Ji a red envelope for her birthday, but their conversation took a turn when Sang Ji hinted she might be entering a relationship with someone older. Alarmed, Sang Yan immediately called, urging her to focus on her studies and warning her against dating. Sang Ji's roommate, Ning Wei, advised her to think carefully about when to accept Duan Jiaxu's pursuit and reminded her to prioritize her safety. Despite her feelings, Sang Ji worried Duan Jiaxu might be acting on a whim. Ning Wei suggested she test his sincerity. When Sang Ji wore the bracelet Duan Jiaxu had given her, it didn't take long for him to text, asking if she was free the next day. Before Sang Ji could reply, Ning Wei intercepted, sending a no on her behalf. Confused but undeterred, Duan Jiaxu asked about the following day. Sang Ji responded again that she might not be free. Determined to prove himself, Duan Jiaxu consulted his colleagues for advice, realizing Sang Ji wanted to see his persistence. On Thursday night, after much deliberation, Sang Ji finally agreed to meet him. On Thursday, Sang Ji dressed up beautifully, excited to meet Duan Jiaxu. However, he called, apologizing that he couldn't make it due to work issues. Sang Ji brushed it off, but her disappointment grew when he canceled their second planned dinner, again citing work. After several similar instances, Sang Ji's patience began to wear thin. Her roommates complained about the situation, but Sang Ji remained composed. After the latest cancellation, she returned to her dorm with an indifferent expression, not even bothering to ask for an explanation. Unbeknownst to her, Duan Jiaxu had been visiting a nursing home where his father, in a vegetative state after a car accident, was deteriorating. Years earlier, Duan Jiaxu's father had confessed to causing an accident and, despite encouragement from Duan Jiaxu and his mother to turn himself in, had tragically jumped to his death. This marked the beginning of Duan Jiaxu's challenging life, working tirelessly to support himself and his family. Though his mother encouraged him to finish university, she later fell ill, refusing expensive treatments to avoid accumulating more debt. Duan Jiaxu returned home exhausted and confused. He hesitated to message Sang Ji but ultimately called, asking if he could see her. When Sang Ji's roommate overheard, she encouraged her to meet him. Though Sang Ji was upset about Duan Jiaxu's repeated cancellations, she set aside her frustration, understanding the pressures of his work. When they met, Sang Ji bought marshmallows from a nearby stall and told Duan Jiaxu that eating sweets could help lift his spirits. This gesture caught Duan Jiaxu off guard, making him smile for the first time in a while. He teased that Sang Ji's kindness signaled her commitment to him, as no one would make marshmallows for an ordinary friend. Embarrassed, Sang Ji told him to research how to pursue a girl properly. Laughing, Duan Jiaxu admitted his mistakes and vowed to start seriously chasing her. On the weekend, Sang Ji attended a sharing session, and Duan Jiaxu joined her there, determined to support her in every way. Sang Ji was lying on the table when Duan Jiaxu leaned in and playfully poked her cheek. Although she hadn't been sleeping, she quickly sat up, her ears turning red, and accused him of teasing her. Duan Jiaxu grinned and innocently asked what she had been doing just now. Flustered, Sengji suddenly turned her head and kissed him on the cheek. She hastily added that it didn't mean she had any romantic thoughts about him, and it certainly didn't mean she agreed to anything. Her words faltered as Duan Jiaxu smiled mischievously, almost convincing her with his charm. Annoyed, she tried to kick him out, but he stayed, keeping a straight face despite his amusement. After class, Duan Jiaxu accompanied Sengji on a walk around campus. They stumbled upon a game where his roommate was spectating, so they decided to join the crowd. During the game, Zhang Ming twisted his ankle, and Wang Wang, clearly concerned, rushed to his side. When Zhang Ming had to leave the field, Duan Jiaxu was asked to step in as a substitute. Much to everyone's surprise, Duan Jiaxu displayed exceptional skill, quickly becoming the center of attention and catching the admiration of many onlookers. Meanwhile, Sengji found herself unsure about her plans for the upcoming holidays. Torn between traveling and gaining internship experience, she messaged her brother, Sang Yan, expressing her desire to stay in the city during summer vacation. She asked him to convince their mother on her behalf and even offered to advocate for him the next time their family pressured him about marriage. However, Sang Yan refused outright, suspecting her real motive was to stay close to someone special. He firmly insisted she return home for the break. Later, Wang Wang made a thoughtful gesture, delivering medicine to Jiang Ming for his injury. Her roommates, noticing this, couldn't help but tease her about her clear feelings for him. That evening, Duan Jiaxu texted Sengji after work, but to his surprise, she appeared beside him moments later, holding balloons and a gift. She announced she had come to celebrate his birthday. Upon learning that Sang Yan and others hadn't wished him a happy birthday, Sengji quickly texted Sang Yan, prompting him to call Duan Jiaxu. While Sang Yan wished Duan Jiaxu a happy birthday, he also slyly asked about Sengji's supposed boyfriend. Startled, Sengji hurriedly hung up the phone, much to Duan Jiaxu's amusement. Duan Jiaxu, ever playful, asked Sengji again if she really wasn't interested in him. Sengji awkwardly avoided giving a direct answer. However, Duan Jiaxu wasn't upset by her hesitation. Instead, he smiled confidently, thinking to himself that his little girl deserved the best, and he wouldn't stop until she was his. Sengji planned a special dinner for Duan Jiaxu at a restaurant she had reserved exclusively for the occasion. Without revealing her plans, she sent him away temporarily and rushed to the kitchen to prepare longevity noodles. Though she was flustered and disorganized, she was determined to make the meal herself. When Duan Jiaxu tried to peek into the kitchen, she promptly shooed him away. When the noodles were finally served, Sengji bashfully admitted she only wanted Duan Jiaxu to take pictures of them, fearing they weren't good enough to eat. Yet Duan Jiaxu insisted on tasting them and ate with great enthusiasm, much to her delight. Closing his eyes, he made a birthday wish. Sengji, knowing his wish, smiled and reassured him it would come true, because she had already agreed to his unspoken desire. She added that she hoped to celebrate many more birthdays with him in the future. Overwhelmed, Duan Jiaxu stood and kissed Sengji, a tentative, gentle kiss that marked a new chapter in their relationship. For Sengji, the day was unforgettable, not only because it was Duan Jiaxu's birthday, but also because it marked the start of their life as a couple. Later, Duan Jiaxu opened up about his past, explaining his family's struggles. He shared how his father had been in a vegetative state following an accident, and how his mother had passed away after a long illness. Despite the hardships, he had paid off all debts and tried to move forward. Sengji listened with a heavy heart, her worry for him growing. The next day, Sengji planned to study at the library, but Duan Jiaxu invited her to his home instead, offering her a quiet space to review while he cooked for her. Duan Jiaxu had promised to watch over Sengji while she reviewed, but her presence was a constant distraction. When Sengji teasingly asked for a kiss, Duan Jiaxu, flustered, escaped to the kitchen to cook. After their meal, Sengji eagerly offered to wash the dishes, insisting that Duan Jiaxu couldn't always do everything himself. Though she claimed she wasn't tired, her yawning betrayed her. As she reviewed in the bedroom, she found herself irresistibly drawn to the soft bed. Turning her head, she collapsed onto it dramatically. Nearby was a small plush puppy that Sengji had given Duan Jiaxu at the airport. Delighted, she hugged the little toy bear tightly and relaxed. Her peace was short-lived, however, as Duan Jiaxu walked in suddenly, startling her so much that she tumbled to the floor. Embarrassed, she tried to cover it up by claiming she had been practicing vocabulary words because it was more thrilling that way. Amused, Duan Jiaxu mischievously pinned her down, quipping that he'd show her what real excitement was. Flustered and blushing, Sengji pushed him away, accusing him of being a hooligan. Announcing she was ready to sleep, she climbed onto his bed. Duan Jiaxu, though a little bored without her company, was content to let her rest. As she lay there, Sang-ji confessed shyly that it wasn't his closeness that she disliked. It was that his presence made her nervous in ways she wasn't yet used to. Later that evening, Dwan Jakshu walked Sang-ji home. When Sang-ji handed him some candy, Dwan Jakshu took her hand in his for the first time. The simple act of holding hands filled him with pride and sweetness. On the walk back, Sang-ji playfully complained about how he held hands while crossing the street, remarking that no one else held hands quite like he did. Though Sang-ji had never explicitly said, "I really like you," she now felt bold enough to say it openly, and for the first time, receive an equally open response. Their budding romance wasn't without its complications. Xian Fei, one of Dwan Jakshu's friends, called to announce an upcoming business trip, prompting Dwan Jakshu to promise him a grand meal in celebration. Xian Fei bragged in their group chat about helping Dwan Jakshu find a girlfriend, but Dwan Jakshu quickly clarified that Sang-ji wasn't some random girl, she was Sang Yan's sister. Realizing the implications, Xian Fei panicked, distancing himself from the situation to avoid Sang Yan's wrath. Despite this, Sang Yan soon called Dwan Jakshu, accusing him of conspiring with Xian Fei to pursue Sang-ji. Dwan Jakshu struggled to explain himself amidst the chaotic misunderstanding. Meanwhile, Sang-ji's friend Ning Wei picked up on Sang-ji's nervousness about being around Dwan Jakshu. Ning Wei speculated that Sang-ji was worried Dwan Jakshu might realize she'd liked him long before their relationship began. Encouraging her to be bolder, Ning Wei pointed out that physical affection was normal in a relationship and urged Sang-ji to take the initiative. Sang-ji was inspired and quickly planned a weekend outing with Dwan Jakshu. That weekend, though visibly tired, Dwan Jakshu agreed to take Sang-ji skating. Before they began, Sang-ji announced her intention to kiss him that day, wanting to warn him in advance so it wouldn't seem abrupt. The bold declaration left Dwan Jakshu momentarily flustered. While teaching her how to skate, Sang-ji eventually stumbled into his arms, seizing the moment to give him a shy, superficial kiss. Dwan Jakshu, pretending to be caught off guard, playfully insisted he wasn't ready, earning himself a more deliberate and formal kiss from Sang-ji. However, Sang-ji's parents were concerned about her plans to stay in Yihai for an internship. They had already arranged an opportunity for her in Nanwu, hoping she would consider moving. Despite their efforts, Sang-ji remained determined to stay where her heart truly wanted to be. Sister Seun suffered from a stomach problem while at work, and though she was reluctant to leave, everyone urged her to go to the hospital immediately. Meanwhile, Sang-ji, excited about starting her internship, carefully dressed in formal attire for her first day. However, her excitement dimmed when her brother, Sang Yan, called to check if she had booked her flight home. Despite his busy schedule, he promised to pick her up at the airport. Nervously, Sang-ji confessed that she wasn't returning home and planned to stay for her internship. Sang Yan lost his temper, scolding her for being impulsive and naive. Frustrated, Sang-ji sent him a message defending Dwan Jakshu, explaining that he wasn't a bad person. But she quickly realized Sang Yan had already blocked her. At work, Sang-ji encountered her new supervisor, Shi Xiaoyu, who turned out to be a friend of Jiang Ying, someone from Dwan Jakshu's past. Shi Xiaoyu immediately recognized Sang-ji as the girl she had seen with Dwan Jakshu and treated her coldly. During their first meeting, she didn't let Sang-ji finish her self-introduction, instead giving her a dismissive look and assigning tasks without much guidance. At the end of her first day, Sang-ji, feeling disheartened, put on a brave face during a call with her parents, telling them she was happy and her colleagues were kind. Later, Dwan Jakshu surprised her with a bouquet of flowers, worried about how her day had gone. Sang-ji tried to reassure him, saying she was an adult now, but her exhaustion was evident. Dwan Jakshu gifted her a small piggy ornament, wishing her joy in her internship. He also revealed his plan to visit Sang Yan with her during the National Day holiday to explain their relationship in person, believing it would show sincerity. Later, Sang-ji and Dwan Jakshu attempted to chat on the phone, but Shi Xiaoyu interrupted her, forcing her to end the call. Things worsened when Shi Xiaoyu made Sang-ji stay late to work overtime. Feeling drained, she texted Dwan Jakshu, who realized she was still at work and decided to check on her. When he arrived, Sang-ji leaned into his arms, finding comfort in his presence despite the day's challenges. She asked teasingly if he had truly never had a girlfriend before, and Dwan Jakshu, sensing her unease as a new intern, offered gentle words of reassurance. Her tiredness seemed to melt away with him by her side. Shi Xiaoyu's demands continued, calling Sang-ji to work overtime again the following evening. Dwan Jakshu, tied up with his own work commitments, dropped her off at school before returning to the office. The next morning, he picked her up for work, looking visibly fatigued. Sang-ji noticed he hadn't changed his clothes and realized he had likely worked through the night. Despite his efforts to dismiss her concerns, she saw through him. Before parting ways, she pulled him close and kissed him goodbye. Shi Xiaoyu happened to witness the moment, and quickly shared it with Jiang Ying. The news upset Jiang Ying, whose expression turned stormy. Shi Xiaoyu's treatment of Sang Ji grew harsher. Using a work-related pretext, she reprimanded Sang Ji, accusing her of being clueless and overconfident. Sang Ji, overwhelmed and unsure of how to respond, quietly endured the criticism. That evening, Jiang Ying invited Shi Xiaoyu to dinner, but she declined, citing the company's team-building event. During the event, Sang Ji felt out of place and bored. She found an excuse to leave early, but as she approached the door, Jiang Ying unexpectedly entered the room. Sang Ji tried to ignore her, but Jiang Ying followed, bringing up Duan Jiaxu's family. Jiang Ying revealed that Duan Jiaxu had a father in a vegetative state, requiring an annual hospital cost of 100,000 yuan, then sneered, asking which girl would willingly spend so much on him. Sang Ji firmly responded that she would. Unwilling to back down, Jiang Ying added that Duan Jiaxu's father had killed someone, but Sang Ji dismissed the accusation, stating it had nothing to do with Duan Jiaxu. Jiang Ying pressed on, questioning if Sang Ji's family would accept their relationship. Sang Ji confidently replied that it wasn't Jiang Ying's concern. Attempting one last jab, Jiang Ying claimed that Duan Jiaxu's troubled past made him crave love and mistake kindness for affection. Sang Ji remained steadfast, refusing to be swayed. Jiang Ying escalated the provocation, disclosing that Duan Jiaxu's father had killed her father, but Sang Ji still sided with Duan Jiaxu, reiterating that none of it justified Jiang Ying's treatment of him. Sang Ji felt a pang of sorrow for Duan Jiaxu, knowing how deeply Jiang Ying's words had hurt him in the past. Later, when Duan Jiaxu bought her bread to cheer her up, Sang Ji handed him a bank card with 5,000 yuan saved on it, promising to add another 3,000 once she completed her internship. She explained that it was her way of showing she could take care of him forever. Touched, Duan Jiaxu gave her his wallet, jokingly suggesting she use it to buy a pretty dress instead. Sang Ji then shared her dream of buying a house in Yihai, insisting she was fine despite her earlier frustration. Duan Jiaxu didn't press her but quietly supported her. After working overtime, Duan Jiaxu walked Sang Ji back to campus. Just as they were strolling hand in hand, Sang Ji's mother called to check in, asking her to come home soon for a video chat. Moments later, Sang Yan unexpectedly appeared, catching them in the act. His emotions flared as he saw his younger sister with Duan Jiaxu. Sang Ji hurried to explain, but Sang Yan was visibly upset. Before Sang Ji could calm him, Duan Jiaxu stepped forward to protect her and openly confessed their relationship. Sang Yan's reaction was cold and angry. He forcibly escorted Sang Ji to her dorm, insisting she go upstairs immediately. Sang Ji hesitated, glancing back worriedly with every step. As Duan Jiaxu and Sang Yan walked away, Sang Yan's emotions boiled over, and he punched Duan Jiaxu several times. Duan Jiaxu didn't retaliate, standing firm and taking the hits. Sang Yan expressed his disbelief, stating that even if Duan Jiaxu dated someone younger, it couldn't be his sister. Despite his anger, he left without saying more, but his fury was clear. Later, Sang Ji, worried sick, called Duan Jiaxu repeatedly. Duan Jiaxu reassured her via text, promising everything was fine. He also took the opportunity to promise Sang Yan that he would love and protect Sang Ji for the rest of his life. Duan Jiaxu emphasized that their age gap was just 5 years and vowed to be serious about their relationship. Duan Jiaxu invited Sang Yan to his home to rest. That night, Sang Ji video called Duan Jiaxu. He pretended not to wear a shirt, claiming he didn't want her to see his injuries, switching to a voice call instead. He assured her that Sang Yan had only scolded him, allowing her to sleep peacefully. The next day, Duan Jiaxu showed up wearing a mask, saying he had a cold and didn't want to infect Sang Ji. However, she quickly spotted the bruises on his face and realized Sang Yan had hit him. Furious, she stormed off to confront her brother, threatening to break off their sibling relationship. Duan Jiaxu was moved by Sang Ji's fierce protection, but Sang Yan was left speechless. Eventually, Duan Jiaxu convinced Sang Ji to talk things over with her brother. Although the two initially argued, they awkwardly made amends. Sang Ji and Duan Jiaxu couldn't resist showing affection in front of Sang Yan, much to his frustration. Sang Yan grudgingly accepted their relationship, but clearly had mixed feelings about the situation. After dropping Sang Ji off at her dorm, Duan Jiaxu and Sang Yan planned to return to the company together. Sang Yan insisted on accompanying Duan Jiaxu, partly to keep an eye on him and partly out of curiosity. Observing how often Duan Jiaxu returned to work overtime after dating Sang Ji, Sang Yan couldn't help but comment that love seemed to be draining his energy. During their conversation, Duan Jiaxu revealed his plans to move to a larger apartment closer to Sang Ji's school. Sang Yan, though initially wary of his sister's relationship, admitted that knowing Duan Jiaxu's trustworthy character gave him some peace of mind. The next morning, Sang Yan had already left by the time Duan Jiaxu woke up. At work, Duan Jiaxu overheard from a colleague that Sang Ji had been spotted talking to Zhang Ying 2 days ago at a KTV. Alarmed, Duan Jiaxu immediately confronted Zhang Ying, warning her to stay away from Sang Ji. He made it clear that if she approached Sang Ji again, he would involve the police. Duan Jiaxu's protective side emerged as he vowed to shield Sang Ji from any harm. Meanwhile, at Sang Zi's company, she boldly proposed her own idea during a meeting, while Shi Xiaoyu voiced her disagreement. The leader appreciated Sang Zi's suggestion and decided to present both ideas to the client for a decision. Shi Xiaoyu's disdain for Sang Ji deepened, feeling that Sang Ji had publicly undermined her authority. Her resentment grew as she also harbored jealousy, believing Sang Ji had stolen Duan Jiaxu from Zhang Ying. Later, Sang Yan informed Sang Ji that his flight was leaving early the next morning. Sang Ji became upset, feeling blindsided by his sudden departure, and ended up crying outside her company. When Duan Jiaxu arrived, Sang Yan quickly left Sang Ji in his care. Duan Jiaxu comforted her, sensing that she was homesick. He decided to request leave from work to accompany her home, wanting to be not just her boyfriend, but also someone she could rely on. That night, Sang Yan sent Sang Ji money for her living expenses, cautioning her not to act out with Duan Jiaxu. At work, Sang Ji's plan impressed the client, leaving her feeling both surprised and flattered. Around the same time, Duan Jiaxu rented a 2-bedroom apartment near Sang Ji's school. Though it wasn't meant for them to live together, he wanted her to have a place to rest if she ever felt overwhelmed. Handing her the keys, Duan Jiaxu told Sang Ji that this would be her home from now on. Back at her dormitory, the air conditioner broke down, and the dorm staff informed her that repairs wouldn't happen until after summer vacation. Overwhelmed by the heat, Sang Ji called Duan Jiaxu, who immediately came to her aid and took her to his new apartment. Stocking the fridge with her favorite foods, Duan Jiaxu teased her by saying she could enjoy such meals every day if she stayed there. That evening, after showering, Sang Ji joined Duan Jiaxu to play video games. While sitting together, her hair accidentally got tangled in the button of his pajamas. Panicking, she quickly tried to untangle it, and once free, she bolted to the bedroom in embarrassment, skipping even her slippers. She buried her face in the quilt, flustered and unsure how to face him again. The next morning, as they prepared to head out, both Duan Jiaxu and Sang Ji stepped out of their rooms wearing matching outfits. They froze, surprised by the unintentional coordination, but the moment brought a smile to their faces, hinting at the deepening bond between them. Early one morning, Sang Ji prepared breakfast for Duan Jiaxu, pouring her love and care into the meal. Duan Jiaxu enjoyed the meal with relish, touched by her gesture. In the evenings, when he returned home from work, he often found Sang Ji asleep on the sofa. In such moments, he would lean in and place a gentle, doting kiss on her. During his late-night overtime, Duan Jiaxu made sure to order snacks for Sang Ji, ensuring she felt cared for even when he was busy. Time flew by, and soon, Sang Ji's internship came to an end. She prepared thoughtful gifts for her colleagues, receiving recognition for her efforts, and leaving a positive impression on everyone. Duan Jiaxu also saw significant progress in his project. After countless sleepless nights and relentless work, the new project was finally launched, earning him the respect of his team. Before parting ways, Sang Ji gave Shi Xiaoyu a gift and firmly clarified that she had never stolen anyone's boyfriend. She even advised Shi Xiaoyu to accompany Zhang Ying to see a psychiatrist, suggesting that it might help both of them confront reality. Sister Siyun, impressed by Duan Jiaxu's abilities, considered recommending him for the general manager position at the company. Though Duan Jiaxu was young, his competence was undeniable, and the offer left him both flattered and humbled. To celebrate, Duan Jiaxu planned a trip with Sang Ji, meticulously researching destinations and activities. However, Sang Ji suggested camping instead, opting for something simple and budget-friendly. Camping, she felt, would be quieter and more romantic than a crowded amusement park. Excited by the idea, she began preparing enthusiastically, even deciding to stay up all night in anticipation. Unfortunately, heavy rain dashed their outdoor camping plans. Undeterred, the couple set up a tent in Duan Jiaxu's living room, transforming the space into their cozy retreat. While they were enjoying their makeshift camping, Sang's mother called. Panicked, Sang Ji quickly lay down in the tent, while Duan Jiaxu ducked out of sight to avoid being discovered. Though Sang Yan immediately suspected she was at Duan Jiaxu's place, he chose not to expose them. Sang Ji's parents, missing their daughter, expressed their desire for her to return to Nanwu. With the start of the new school term, Sang Ji decided to participate in a prestigious design competition at Yihei University. Meanwhile, her classmate Wang Wing confessed her feelings to Jiang Ming, who was left flustered, but appreciated the honesty. During the National Day holiday, Sang-yeon brought Sang-ji home. To tease her, he deliberately withheld buying her favorite crispy duck with mashed taro. Meanwhile, Sang's mother overheard Sang-ji speaking affectionately with Dwon Jak-soo on the phone, realizing her daughter was likely in a relationship. However, she had no idea the person on the other end was Dwon Jak-soo. When Dwon Jak-soo revealed he was coming to Nanwoo the next day, Sang-ji excitedly prepared a special box filled with sentimental items, including a little fox figurine and a star bottle representing her thoughts. It was clear she deeply cherished her relationship with him. Sang-ji's father, growing increasingly suspicious, confronted her directly with her mother. Before she could confess, their stern questioning overwhelmed her, and she fled in panic. Seeking refuge, Sang-ji ran to Sang-yeon, pleading with him to take her to dinner with his classmates. Sang-yeon, while driving, couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. He recalled how, as a child, Sang-ji had called Dwon Jak-soo big brother with more affection than she ever showed him. Now, as an adult, it seemed her loyalties hadn't shifted, leaving Sang-yeon feeling slightly miffed but resigned. Sang-ji was eager to see Dwon Jak-soo, so she asked Sang-yeon to drive faster. When Dwon Jak-soo arrived, Sang-ji ran to him, and they held hands as they got into the back seat. Sang-yeon was stunned, coughing loudly to express his shock, but eventually focused on driving, now acting as their chauffeur. The three of them headed to a party with their old friends. At the party, Sang-ji was no longer introduced as Dwon Jak-soo's younger sister, but as his girlfriend. Their friends teased them lightly, but everyone was happy for the couple. During the celebration, Chien-fei announced that he was going to be a dad soon, and everyone cheered, offering their congratulations. As the evening went on, Sang-ji realized she needed to go home before 10 o'clock. Dwon Jak-soo offered to take her back. On the way, he teased her by saying he had to kiss her to get rid of the alcohol smell on her. Sang-ji reminded him that he was allergic to alcohol, but that didn't stop him from leaning in and kissing her multiple times. Embarrassed, Sang-ji broke off the kiss and quickly ran inside her house, her face red with shyness. At home, Sang-ji's mom noticed something was different. She saw her daughter acting flustered and guessed that Sang-ji had been with Dwon Jak-soo. Earlier, she had already seen them holding hands, which confirmed her suspicions. Sang-ji's mom asked her about it directly. Nervous but honest, Sang-ji admitted that she and Dwon Jak-soo were dating. She tried to reassure her mom, saying that Dwon Jak-soo had always taken good care of her and was a trustworthy person. However, Sang-ji's mom was still worried. She didn't dislike Dwon Jak-soo, but she knew his family background wasn't great. His father's reputation and the challenges he faced growing up made her question if he could provide Sang-ji with the stable future she deserved. The next day, Sang-ji's dad invited Dwon Jak-soo over for a private talk. Dwon Jak-soo respected Sang-ji's parents, so he went without hesitation. Sang-ji's dad asked him about his family and how he planned to care for Sang-ji. He told Dwon Jak-soo that, as parents, they naturally worried because Sang-ji was still young. Dwon Jak-soo promised that he was serious about their future and would do everything to make Sang-ji happy. Later that night, Sang-ji returned home after her class reunion. Her parents sat her down for a talk. They admitted they had spoken to Dwon Jak-soo earlier and asked her to think carefully about their relationship. They wanted to make sure she was truly happy and wouldn't face unnecessary struggles. Sang-ji listened quietly, but in her heart she was certain about her feelings for Dwon Jak-soo. She didn't want her parents to judge him based on his family background, which wasn't his fault. Meanwhile, Dwon Jak-soo couldn't stop thinking about the talk with her dad. He felt pressure to prove himself worthy of Sang-ji and her family. Sensing this, Sang-ji called him that night to reassure him. She told him he was good enough and that she didn't care about his family's past. Her words comforted him, but he still asked her to focus on spending time with her parents while he worked on himself. The next day, Sang-ji decided to take action. She packed her bags and booked a flight to Yihae to see Dwon Jak-soo. She explained to her parents that while she understood their concerns, she had grown up and was confident in her choices. She hoped they could trust her to make the right decisions for her own happiness. When she arrived in Yihae, Dwon Jak-soo was surprised but happy to see her. At the airport, Sang-ji opened up about her feelings. She confessed that back in high school, she had gone to find him because she liked him. She admitted that she had kept her feelings secret for years because she was afraid of rejection. Sang-ji then handed him a small box filled with star notes she had written as a child. Each note contained little thoughts and wishes she had about him. Dwon Jak-soo read them carefully, his emotions overwhelming him. Sang-ji begged him to believe in himself and their relationship, no matter what anyone said. She promised to stay by his side forever. As tears welled up in his eyes, Dwon Jak-soo wiped them away, carefully folding back the star note she had shared. He reassured her that he already knew her feelings and was now truly in a relationship, not one based on rumors. While Sang-ji worried he was considering breaking up, Dwan Jakshu was actually thinking about their future and how to address her parents' concerns. Later that night, Sang-ji woke up to find Dwan Jakshu drinking. Thinking he was upset, she grew anxious. Dwan Jakshu confessed his insecurities, feeling he wasn't good enough for her. Overwhelmed with emotion and a little drunk, he kissed her deeply, seeking comfort in her presence. Dwan Jakshu decided to resign from his job and return to Nanwoo to start a business. His mentor, Sister Siyun, and others supported his decision, recognizing that he had carefully thought it through. Around this time, Dwan Jakshu received a call from the hospital informing him that his father's condition had worsened, and the doctor advised him to have a final conversation with his father. At the hospital, Dwan Jakshu sat beside his father, unsure of what to say. Reflecting on their difficult past, he acknowledged how his father's choices and mistakes had shaped his own understanding of responsibility. If his father hadn't avoided his duties or caused so much pain, their lives might have been different. Despite the hardships, Dwan Jakshu felt he had learned to protect the ones he loved and become a better person. He told his father to rest in peace and assured him that he would apologize to his mother when he joined her someday. Shortly after, his father passed away, his hand twitching slightly as his life ended. When Sang-ji arrived, she was deeply worried about Dwan Jakshu. Although he appeared calm, he broke down in her arms, crying uncontrollably. He admitted that, with both his parents now gone, he felt utterly alone. Together, they visited his mother's grave, where they shared the news of his father's passing, and prayed for their happiness in the afterlife. Sang-ji promised Dwan Jakshu that she would never let anyone hurt him again. She reassured him that one day, he would have a loving home filled with people who cared for him, and he would never feel lonely again. Soon after, Dwan Jakshu told Sang-ji that he had officially resigned and was preparing to move back to Nanwoo. He declared that his future was with her, and wherever she was, that was where he wanted to be. However, Sang-ji still had to complete her university studies, so she couldn't go with him yet. The day Dwan Jakshu was set to leave, Sang-ji accompanied him to the airport. She clung to his arm, urging him not to overwork himself and reminding him that it was okay to fail because she would always support him. As they reached the boarding gate, Sang-ji reluctantly let go, tears in her eyes, while Dwan Jakshu promised to work hard for their future. After Dwan Jakshu left, Sang-ji created a long-distance relationship guide to help them stay connected. Dwan Jakshu loved the idea, and they both agreed to follow the guide together. Though the distance between them was hard, their bond grew stronger with every step they took toward their shared future. As Sang-ji focused on school competitions, Dwan Jakshu returned to Nanwoo to begin building his business from the ground up. He rented an office and carefully assembled a studio. In his downtime, Dwan Jakshu often met with Chian-fei and Sang-yan at Sang-yan's bar, gradually strengthening their bond. Determined to make things official, Dwan Jakshu decided it was time to visit Sang-ji's parents again, hoping to gain their full approval. When he told Sang-ji about his plans, she became nervous. Knowing her parents were still skeptical about Dwan Jakshu, he asked Sang-yan to come home for support. During the visit, Dwan Jakshu respectfully shared his feelings. He admitted he understood their concerns, but emphasized his genuine love for Sang-ji and his desire to build a future with her. He explained how much Sang-ji had changed his life for the better, and promised to treat her well for the rest of his life. Touched by his sincerity, Sang-ji's parents finally gave their blessing, realizing their daughter's happiness mattered most. Later, Sang-yan saw Dwan Jakshu off. In a rare moment of sincerity, Sang-yan encouraged him to share the burdens of life rather than carrying everything alone. The two reminisced about their shared journey, appreciating how far they'd come. That evening, Dwan Jakshu made a video call to Sang-ji. He told her about his conversation with her parents and how they now supported their relationship. Sang-ji was overjoyed and shared her own good news. Her design project had won an award. The ceremony was at the end of the month, but Dwan Jakshu regretfully said he might not be able to attend due to work. Despite his busy schedule, Dwan Jakshu made time to surprise Sang-ji at the award ceremony. When he presented her with the award, it became a heartwarming moment for everyone there. Standing side by side, they realized they were achieving their dreams together. 2 years later, Sang-ji graduated. To celebrate, their close-knit group gathered by the seaside to plan a marriage proposal for their friends Chen Chang and Ning Wei. However, the real surprise was Dwan Jakshu's proposal to Sang-ji. He had secretly invited her parents and Sang-yan to witness the moment. Under the golden sunset, Dwan Jakshu expressed his heartfelt promise. He wanted to give Sang-ji the best life possible and dedicate his entire future to her happiness. With the blessings of their family and friends, Dwan Jakshu slipped an engagement ring onto Sang-ji's finger, sealing their love with a lifetime commitment. Later, Duan Jiaxu shared a long-kept secret with Sang Ji. Before she confessed her feelings, he had already fallen for her. Sang Ji was pleasantly surprised, realizing how far they'd come. She had helped him heal from his past, and he had given her a love that fulfilled her youthful dreams. Their story, which began when Duan Jiaxu was 22 and Sang Ji was still a young girl with a crush, reached a beautiful conclusion as Sang Ji turned 22. Together, they proved that love, when nurtured with patience and understanding, could blossom into something extraordinary. The story of Sang Ji and Duan Jiaxu wasn't just about romance. It was a journey of growth, healing, and unwavering devotion. That's it for today's recap. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button to stay updated on all the latest recaps. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.